Good morning, fellow members. It's the appointed time and we have a quorum. Welcome to the PWSC meeting this morning. This morning is by video conferencing. Can you hear me clearly? Well, please show. Wow, you raise your hands to show that you have heard me clearly. So please note that during the meeting, you should turn on the video function on Zoom and show your face. And please use the designated color for your background. The mic will be switched on upon my instruction. SI service is provided during the meeting, and members can choose the relevant language channel on Zoom. There are 2 papers to be handled during this meeting. The 2 papers are funding applications from the government. A total of $21.949 billion is involved. If members have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest on the matters to be discussed, please, in accordance with Rules of Procedures 83A, disclose the nature of that interest before you speak. Item 1 is the CWRF block allocations. And the paper number is PWSC, bracket 2021 to 2022, 35. So to ensure that the arrangement for members to speak is orderly and fair, would staff please remove the hand up sign of members first. So removed, right? Those who would like to speak, please press the hands up function on Zoom. Later on, I will invite members to speak in turn. And if time allows, after the first round, I will ask you to raise your hand to speak for a second round. For those who would like to speak, please press the button to let me know so that I can make the necessary arrangements. The council meeting will be held at 11. The Financial Secretary will deliver his budget, so we are very concerned about it. So for the PWSC meeting today, I hope that we can finish the 2 items by 10:30. So I'll have to control the timing better. So I will be very straight on the time rule and allow you to speak in accordance with the time set. All right? Let me see. The members who would like to speak as noted by the clerk. Okay, let me take a look first. So the order of speaking will be shown to me by the clerk. All right, I've got it now. So presiding a meeting on Zoom, we'll have to spend some time on the technical issues. First, Mr. Vincent Zhang, 4 minutes. Mr. Zhang, please. Good morning, Chairman, and good morning, fellow members. I have 2 questions. First is about the Shakit May District Health Center site investigation work. Well, back then, there has been proposal for institute reprovisioning of the health center at Barwick Street. And the government said that 2025 would be the completion date and the opening date would be 2026. What kind of services will be provided? And what about the other health facilities in the district? Will there be any synergy? And then second, in Sham Shui Po, there are parks proposed to be built. We are very concerned about Sham Shui Po Park. And there will be a pet-inclusive park proposed. So I would like to learn about the progress. I think the questions are very clear. Who from the government will take the questions, please? Yes? So which government official will take the question? Please show its image on the screen. Chairman, is the Director of Architectural Services, please. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Zhang, for your question. Well, there has been some echo here at my end. So can the IT staff make the adjustment, please? Yes, please, go ahead. Yes, yes. Well, thank you, Mr. Zhang, for your question about the Community Health Center and Shakimate under district minor works allocation. Advanced works will be taken forward. The engineering study, QS study, and so on. The member asked about the facilities. I don't have the detailed information. I can supplement after the meeting. Yes. About the project in Shamshui-Po. The Shamshui Park, the pet inclusive park. Mr. Zhang knows that there is a similar one in Chimwei which has been very successful. It has been very popular among children. So the inclusive park will hope to accommodate both the abled and disabled children, and they can play together. So we will go by that principle in designing the park in Shamshui-Po. What about the progress of works? Do you know when the park will be completed? We are waiting for it to be opened. The design is going on, and we are working with the community bodies and schools in the vicinity. We have invited them to give us their input on the design. For the Two Moon Park, we have approached certain bodies and asked children to design certain buttons to be built into the park so that they can have a stronger sense of belonging. So the design is going on. Thank you. For those who are tuning in live on the meeting, before the next member, Mr. Andrew Lam, speaks, let me tell you. This is about the 2022-23 CWRF block allocations. A total allocation of $21.7996 million is involved. So this will provide funding for all the heads under the CWRF. So we also propose that there is an increase in the approved allocation for subhead 3100GX under head 703 by $45 million. The government has submitted the proposal to the PWSC on the 19th of February, and the paper is number 13, 2021 to 2022-1. And the government has consulted, respectively, the ITPB on the 14th of February 2022 and the Transport Panel on the 15th of February 2022. Both panels support that the proposals be forwarded to the PWSC for consideration, and their opinions have been sent to members via email. While the panel on development was supposedly holding a meeting tomorrow to discuss the issue, but then because of COVID-19, the meeting has been rescheduled. And we do not want to affect the funding process, so we would like to consider the proposal by the FC before the 1st of April. So these are projects which where the public interest is at stake. So the panel on development chairman and myself have agreed that these proposals be discussed at today's meeting so that the FC can have sufficient time to consider the applications before the 1st of April. So this is the explanation. So we have got the list of government officials which are attending, so I will not introduce them one by one. So Mr. Howard Lee, do you have anything to add? If not, then I will ask members to continue. Mr. Lee, do you have anything to supplement? Or do you want to brief us on the paper as a whole? If not, then I will ask members to continue. Mr. Andrew Lam, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. For the CWRF, well, for 706, 6100TX is about the smart lamppost. The Yaoqingmong district will have a smart lamppost to be installed. And then there is also a lamppost management system to be proposed. To my understanding, well, the pilot started in 2009, which will last 3 years. Does it mean that all the lampposts have already been installed before the pilot scheme starts? That's point number one, because that has also to do with the replacement of other lampposts as well. And in new towns, we would like to build a smart city there. So I don't know how the preparatory work is like. What is our attitude or our stance towards installing lampposts? About smart lampposts, which official from the government will take the question, please? Yes, it's the Highways Department. Let me respond to Mr. Andrew Lam's question about smart lampposts and also the replacement for other lampposts as well. Like what Mr. Lam said, the smart lamppost pilot project started a couple of years ago, and after the first batch of lampposts have been installed, some members of the public have certain views on the smart lampposts. So we have set up an independent committee to review the facilities. Now, after the review, we have adjusted the plans and revised the plans. And on the enhanced design, we have already consulted the public as well. So after forging a consensus, we are restarting the program, and it comes a bit later than scheduled, but we are still continuing with our work. And for the Yaoqingmong district, well, the project is the last in the series of projects. We'll complete it as soon as possible. And last year, we started the project in Yaoqingmong already. And a total of 115 lampposts, smart lampposts are involved. And so later on this year, these will be completed. As for whether the delay of the smart lampposts project will cause a delay on other projects, under the CWRF block allocation, well, most of the projects have to do with replacement of LED lamps. So what we are doing, in fact, is to change the lamps into LED lamps. And this is totally different from the smart lampposts. So there won't be any impact at all. And then about the implementation of a smart lighting management system. This is basically about installing communication equipment on existing lighting system. We will install Internet of Things installation so that can monitor the lampposts remotely, so as to cut down on possible problems to the lampposts. And we can immediately do repair work. And through the smart lighting management system, we would also be monitoring the environmental lighting and adjust the lighting level accordingly so as to save energy. Thank you.
Chairman, has the pilot, project been completed yet? Short response, please. The multifunctional, the pilot scheme for the smart lamppost system, as I said, in Yaoqingmong district, we're still installing such lights. The pilot scheme, I think we will complete the remaining few batches before it will be concluded. Mr. Teng Ka-Biu, I'll also, read out the names of the others which follow Mr. Teng, and they are Tony Chair, Stanley Ng, Chen Yut Ming, Lam Chen Sing, and Tan Yut Hang. Mr. Teng Ka-Biu. Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I have, an overall or global question. For the funding application this year, I'd like to know what the amount involving capital works is only 13.9 billion. If you take away the computerization, land resumption expenses, the increase is less than 1%. I hope that with stability return to our society, and if LegCo's proceedings return to normal, I think we can actually have more capital works to create more employment as well. Why is it that the increase is so small? It's only 0.7%. Does it have to do with what's wrong with our district administration? Because many of the district councils are not functioning properly, and therefore we no longer have the mechanism for input coming from the community. Why is it for the minor works projects less than $50 million, the increase is only 0.7%? I think that is not compatible with what our society needs. So that's my first question. Secondly, and to be more specific, I'd like to talk about Head 707 7100C, and this is Ngau Chi Wan. We understand that Ngau Chi Wan, Chuk Yuen, and Chua Kwa Ling, there will be replanning for a housing project. For Ngau Chi Wan, I understand other than squat huts, there are also private properties. I don't see any expenditure for land resumption for Ngau Chi Wan, but apparently you've already started the planning and the surveying work. So for the Ngau Chi Wan project, if it involves land acquisition and there is a need for compensation, I'd like to know more details about that. Let's first of all talk about the overall allocation. Mr. Lee Menching, would you like to answer the question? Yes, Deputy Secretary, Mr. Lee. Thank you, Chairman and Mr. Tang, for your question. Actually, for 2022-2023 funding application, Mr. Tang has already pointed out that for the capital works projects, we need $13.9 billion in total, and such funding will be spent on various minor works and some major capital works projects and the technical or feasibility studies for those capital works projects. The funding, the number of and the subheads, that is the minor works and the feasibility study for capital works projects, they reflect the cash requirements for those projects. For in the financial year 22-23, overall allocation involve about 17,000 projects, 15,000 of which are ongoing projects like landslip prevention, drainage, and other types of minor works, and also planning for some of the major projects, some of the advanced works like feasibility studies or assessment and design. Mr. Tang, to answer Mr. Tang's question, I think we've heard Mr. Tang. Of course, the needs of the community or the district level, the government is also very concerned about that. The greater the expectation of the public, we will also, implement these projects in order to satisfy the livelihood needs of the people. For the different government departments, regarding the cash flow requirement, it's going forward for the financial year is $30.9 billion. Different departments will adopt very prudent principles to spend, the funding. Like we said, the project. There are many projects. There are a total of 17,000 such projects, 15,000 of which are already ongoing projects. So this actually reflects our cash flow, requirements going forward. For the overall number of capital works, that's more than that, because we are only looking at the capital works, reserve funds and the funding application for minor works. But earlier on, at the last PWSC meeting, the government already told us that overall we're going to spend, there will be funding of $130 billion for the overall capital work projects. So Mr. Tang has already taken more than 5 minutes. Are there any other officials who would like to answer Mr. Tang's question? Would anyone like to answer the question raised by Mr. Tang regarding those capital work projects? Chairman. Ms. Lin, Ms. Benedict Lin. Regarding Mr. Tang's question, for the Auchiwan squatter area, we are now conducting a study which will soon be completed. We hope that within this year, we'll be able to start the amendment of the outlying zoning plan, so that we can proceed with the land resumption. If private rights and properties are involved, and also for the residents of the squatter area, we will deal with that according to the existing mechanism. Regarding the funding required to compensate private landowners, through this block allocation, there is one subhead 710, which specifically is for the purpose of land resumption compensation. The uniqueness of this project is that we will deal, based on the present mechanism, we can, under this project week, will be able to spend the money and also, include our estimate. Tony Chair, first of all, I'd like to ask whether the chairman will allow, a second round of questions. Well, in that case, I will, ask all the questions because I have many questions to ask. First of all, in paragraph 4 of the paper, the official talked about the land resumption. It was $250 million, and now it's down to $630 million. I don't know why. Is it because the land resumption pace has slowed down? In order to expedite our development, land resumption is essential. Secondly, I'd like to look at Annex 1A, and that is the Housing Societies Urban Renewal Project. The estimate is close to $1 billion, but for the next year, you're going to only spend $0.15 million. Is it because the project has been aborted? I noticed that there are such projects, including Annex 8B, that is the Fanning North Public Work, the Nursery Center, and the Neighborhood Elderly Center in the Northern District. The amount asked for is very large, but you only plan to spend $0.2 million. Is it because there's been a very long delay for these projects? I can see that for many of the new projects, the estimate for these projects is only a small fraction of the amount sought for. What is the reason for that? Is it because of because of the epidemic? We would like to expedite these projects, whether it be the invitation or tender, and so on. So could the government explain that? And secondly, if you look at Annex 10, the new computerization system, I think we have the same issue here. For the new project, now for the first year, you only expect to spend about 10% of the funding asked for. For computerization, I think technology is developing in leaps and bounds. So is it the case that these projects will take 3 to 4 years to complete? By the time of its completion, there would be new technologies, emerging. So has the government considered whether you could expedite these projects? Do you have other reasons for the delay? Also, Chairman, I noticed we're talking about the capital works projects here. In Appendix 8C, for the renovation works for many of the schools, are you going to have separate tenders for each of these projects, or will these projects be bundled together? In the midst of the epidemic, I think we need to take care of the needs of the SMEs. If you bundle these projects together, the SMEs may not be able to bid for these projects. So these are the questions which I'd like the officials to answer. I think during the last term in the Finance Committee, the delegation for allocation was raised from 30 million to 50 million. I said that the government could perhaps come back and explain to us every year for those projects costing $30 to $50 million, they could give us more details so that we would know. After raising the cap for these capital, fund allocation, would the government do that? Well, raising the cap from $30 to $50 million, perhaps the government could, after the meeting, give us a paper to explain how much exactly the project is going to cost this year. Mr. Tony Chair already taken 4 minutes already. So regarding land resumption, and some of the projects which the expended expenditure is smaller than what is budgeted, could the government officials explain that? Ms. Benedict Lin, please be brief. Chairman, regarding the estimate for land resumption expenses, I'd like to stress that it's not the government is slowing down its pace. We've said many times that in the next 5 years, we're going to resume 500 hectares of land. As to why the estimate is smaller than earlier, what we earlier said. Well, I think when we prepared the estimate, we adopted a more progressive approach. That is, we assume that in the course of resumption, everyone will be eligible and will be able to obtain the ex gratia compensation and ensure that they are properly compensated. But experience over the years have shown that the final amount spent is not the same as what is budgeted, because many people will turn out not being eligible. Sometimes when you vet and approve the amount of compensation, there could be a time lag. So this time, when we prepare the budget, we try to be as precise as possible, and that's why we adopted a more realistic model to make our assessment. We've spent 6 minutes already, but I understand that the SWD would also like to answer the question. The member asked why, for the 22-23, estimate, it is only a small fraction of the overall allocation. The items referred by the member are projects yet to be started next year. Our cash flow requirement, I think for the funding will be spread over a few years. For the first 1 or 2 years, the amount to be expended will be smaller. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, your time has you've already overrun. Perhaps you can take up that issue with the department's concern after the meeting. Mr. Stanley Ng. Mr. Stanley Ng, thank you. Can you hear me? Yes. I have 2 questions. First of all, the impact of the epidemic. The funding allocation this time, would it be affected by the epidemic? And has the authorities undertaken any assessment? And as a result of which, we may need to, we may need extra allocation because of the cost overrun. Now, because of the epidemic, I'd like to ask whether certain projects can be would be suspended. For example, the planning, the design work, and so on. Could they actually proceed simultaneously? That's in respect of the impact of the epidemic.
The second question is about employment situation. Paragraph 18 says that that 139 $917 million will be spent to create some 200,000 posts. I know that there will be subhead to provide for that. And then can you take forward these projects in an orderly manner? Because we are talking about major schemes here. Can we guarantee that the local workers will be given priority and that we would not have to import workers from outside? Because I don't want to see the latter happening. Mr. Ng is concerned about the progress of capital works under the epidemic and also the employment situation. Who will take the questions, please? Would someone from the Development Bureau take the question? Chairman, I'd like to thank Mr. For his question. I will say something first before I defer to Mr. Feng of the Development Bureau to respond. In the CWRF, our intent is to give departments some flexibility and that they are under delegated authority by the LegCo to proceed with district minor works. And a lump sum is given to us every year. And then the controlling officers of the different heads, in accordance with the delegated authority, will proceed or revise certain projects based on their actual needs. A list of capital works projects have been submitted to you and revision can be made. In 2020, the relevant departments have used this block allocation mechanism to do anti-epidemic work. Say, for example, in 2020, they have leveraged on the block allocation mechanism to set up isolation facilities in a short time. The departments will, based on the development of the epidemic and the overall needs of the society, make revisions to their plans, and they would make use of the block allocations to work on anti-epidemic projects. So can I ask Mr. Feng of the Development Bureau to supplement, please? Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, you can speak. I am Mr. Lau Chun-Kit from the Development Bureau, Permanent Secretary. Let me respond to Mr. Ng's questions on our anti-epidemic work. The construction sector has worked hand in hand, and we have done the best anti-epidemic work on construction sites. We have issued guidelines to the contractors to ensure that they can protect their workers, including we give guidance on wearing masks, measuring temperatures, and we need the construction sites to be tidy and hygienic. And in the latest wave of outbreak, there have been sporadic cases of infections in construction sites. And we have liaised with the stakeholders and the Construction Industry Council, and we have set up a dedicated task force to share the latest developments, and we also formulate policies for the sector and encourage the sector to put in the proper anti-infection measures, infection control measures. And for our design work, the work has never been stopped, and we are proceeding with it. And on employment, as there are more construction projects, while the manpower is tight in the sector as a whole, in the last PWSC meeting, I have also briefed members. The CIC is now updating the manpower needs and the supply of manpower. In terms of training, in terms of the use of new technologies, efforts will be stepped up. We hope to meet with the manpower needs of the various projects. Next one, Chan Yut Ming, 4 minutes. Ms. Chan Yut Ming. Thank you, Chairman. I noticed subhead 7014CX is about village mining works. Last year, the allocation is $160 million, and 2023, it has increased by 1.9%. So it's just $1.9 million. I am puzzled by the figure because on the 14th of February, the HA panel was briefed on the initiatives in the policy address. And I have shared my views on the rural minor works. And the government officials said that time that there will be an increase of $10 million next year, and that is a total of $170 million. Well, I'm not happy with the figure because we're talking about that amount being spread over 27 rural areas. Now, on average, it takes 3 to 5 years to install a lamppost in the rural areas. So that's totally undesirable. So we are talking about $1.9 million an increase, 1.9%. So it's falling short of the inflation rate. So what is the allocation for rural district works in the next year? Will that increase? There are now there is now a backlog of 130 projects. And if we are to work on just 10 new projects next year, then we are ending in a vicious cycle. Has the government seriously considered how to clear the backlog of rural minor works so that villagers don't have to wait for a lamppost to be installed for several years? Who will take the question on the rural minor works? So the improvement works to rural areas. So we'll take the question. Will it be the HAB who will take the question? Yes. Thank you, member, for your question on the improvement works to rural areas, rural public works. And well, several years back, the funding was $140 million. In the 2019 policy address, the chief executive said that the spending will progressively increase. So going forward, there will be an increase of $161.9 million. And the member referred to lamppost project. Well, it is a project under the Highways Department. It doesn't subsume under the Rural Public Works Program. So will the Highways Department respond? So how come that on the 14th of February, the HAB has given me a different reply? They said that, well, $10 million will be added. How come that there is a big discrepancy there? So HAB, will you respond to the question again? From 2019 to 20, the total commitment is $140 million. And the chief executive previously said that the amount will be progressively increased. So that will be increased from 140 to 150 million. And then in 2021 to 22, it has been increased to $160 million. Well, I think there is discrepancy in your answers. What about the lampposts? Will someone take the question? Chairman? About the lampposts in rural areas. Under 6011TX under 706, we have already set aside a sum for lampposts in rural areas. And on page 37, enclosure 6A, item 8, and that is about the NT-West lamppost project. And in 2020-23, $8.3 million have been set aside for village lighting works for the New Territories West. But of course, we will work on other areas as well. But these are the more large-scale projects. And the new territories west covers a vast area, so that's why the item, hence the item here. And then, well, for projects in the other areas, they have been listed in the annex. Thank you. The next one. Well, there are 8 members who would like to speak: Lam Chun Sing, Tan Yun Han, Ngan Man Yu, Chan Hok Fong, Lan Man Kwong, Dick Ji Yun, Lee Chun Keung, and Lam So Wai. Does any other member wish to speak? Well, I have to control the time strictly, and we have to really pass this project, this funding application before it is submitted to the FC. Normally, I would not draw a line, but this time round, I have to do so. So after Ms. Lam So Wai has spoken, I will end. Well, if any other member who wishes to speak, please raise your hand now so that I can make the arrangement accordingly. Well, okay, no other member wishes to speak. Mr. Tony Chair would like to speak for a second round. Well, we will we'll give priority to those for the first round first. All right. So we will end the first round after Ms. Lam So Wai has spoken. I don't want to draw a line, but in the interest of time, I have to do so. So we will end with Ms. Lam So Wai. So no objection, right? And the next one is Mr. Lam Chun Sing, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Overall, I support the funding application, especially under the 5th wave of outbreak. We would like to control or curb the epidemic as soon as possible so that these projects can proceed on time and in an orderly manner, so that the labor market in the construction sector will be stabilized. And we don't want that the situation where sometimes there is too much work and other times there is little work. And that is what the frontline workers would like to see as well. Now I would like to talk about 703. Item 7 is about the Kowloon Tong Education Centers. It's not a very large-scale project, but then there's been criticism that the utilization rate is rather low. Several years ago, the Audit Commission has criticized for its low usage. And last year, the Teachers' Center have been closed. Now it's been turned into an vaccination center. And, well, I believe that this is just a temporary arrangement. Well, the place is very accessible. And after we allocate the funding, we hope that, well, these venues can really serve the public. Now, for the Education Services Center in particular, we hope that it can serve the teachers and other teaching professions. So can we raise utilization rates there? So who from the government will respond to the question, please? Which department, please? Chairman is the Director of Architectural Services. Thank you, Chairman. I'm from the RHSC. For the Kowloon Tong Education Services Center, well, the storage space, the halls, and so on will be converted into offices so that the EDB and the Education Commission can better utilize the facility and enjoy the accessibility of the venue. That is done because we are short of office space at the EDB. So we would like to meet the needs of the EDB colleagues. So that's all I want to say. Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Lam Chun Sing, do you have a follow-up question? If not, we'll come to Dr. Tam Mok Tang.
Thank you, Chairman.
I have 2 questions. First of all, under the epidemic, how do you prevent the outbreak of the epidemic at construction sites? There are a few such construction sites where there is an outbreak. The government apparently has not asked for a suspension of works on these sites, and the Center for Health Protection also does not have such requirements. So if there is an outbreak of the epidemic, will work have to be suspended on these construction sites? A few days ago, for example, the Cheung Kwan O Tunnel project, there is an outbreak. So we have people who have become infected. So is it because of the pressure to complete the project on time? Now, but then the contractor will have to be liable for any delay in the project if they suspend the works. So in the midst of the epidemic, shouldn't the government have some criteria governing the suspension of works, and also give the contractor a discretion and a grace period of 1 or 2 months, because fighting the epidemic is the top priority. And secondly, in the funding list today, there are 12 items which for example, the development of caverns. The work period normally would take 10 to 15 years. In the northern metropolitan area, there is a plan to create land there. As for rock caverns, do we need to further expand the scope of such works? Would the government review the plan for developing caverns? Is there a need to cut down on these projects? So measures to prevent epidemic in the construction sites, and also strategy regarding the development of caverns. Development Bureau, Mr. Lau Chin-Kip, Permanent Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Tan, for the question. I'd like to thank him for giving me the opportunity to talk about how our measures to curb the epidemic on construction sites. We have been working hard with the industry to fight the epidemic on. There are many measures that could be undertaken on the construction sites. Other than that, we have also done a lot of promotion with the CIC, and the CIC has already set up patrol teams going to different construction sites to assess the anti-epidemic measures, and if there's a need for improvement, they will follow up. At the same time, for the government works projects, we understand that during this time, contractors will need to implement extra measures, and if there are confirmed infection cases on construction sites, the workers will need to be tested, and there's a need to disinfect the site. We will take the advice of we will act on the advice of the Center for Health Protection, and for the financial pressure and the delay costs to the contractor, we are willing to deal with that flexibly, so that we will be able to fight the epidemic together. As for caverns or rock caverns, it is one of the long-term solutions to create more land. And we have several projects ongoing at the moment. With your permission, Chairman, for example, we have a major rock project to move the water treatment facilities in Sha Tin to a cavern. Some members also mentioned to the Diamond Hill project. We are now doing the design work, and we will soon be able to proceed with the construction. On the Anderson's Road side, there is another cavern project, rock cavern project. In the Kowloon Central Laboratory, we want to move it into a cavern. So we will continue it is a policy to continue to develop caverns, rock caverns. I think for the rock cavern projects, it is important because they can release some land. Because after we move some facilities into these rock caverns, we will be able to, control and manage these facilities more effectively, such as through the sewage treatment facilities. Mr. Ngan Men Yu, 4 minutes. Thank you. According to the paper, there are 2 projects which I'd like to seek further elaboration. First of all, Kowloon East, the sea-land connection facility. For Kowloon East, the water promenade, we already have a project in Lei Yue Mun. There's a public pier there. For the Kwun Tong promenade near the Kwun Tong Ferry Pier, I'd like to know where this sea-land link will be located. And secondly, the pedestrian and cyclist footbridge, and also the pedestrian conveyor belt design. Well, I don't think this project has been put to public consultation. I understand that residents in Kwun Tong and residents in Kowloon East would like to have this bridge straddling the typhoon shelter there, would also come with a vehicular, passageway. If we're going to build something spanning across the typhoon shelter, if you only allow cyclists to use it, it's not enough. So I'd like to ask the government what is the view on this project. Now, which official would like to take up this question? CEDD. Yes, you may proceed now. Can you hear me, Mr. Lei Wai-ban? Yes, yes. Go ahead, Director. Regarding the Kowloon East, the sea-land connection, we are proposing to conduct a detailed feasibility, technical and feasibility study, which we hope will start in the middle of this year. We hope to take 3 to 4 years to complete that study. The purpose is that at the far end of the Kai Tak runway and the waters near the typhoon shelter, we could provide more water and land connection, so that for the former runway and so we will be able to have some aquatic activities in the waters there. In our study, we hope in future the area could be developed into a recreational destination. So the concept of joint use of the Kwun Tong water body, we will provide appropriate facilities there. In our study, we will take a detailed look at various options and how we can promote the development of water spots and also the transportation, connection and provision for vehicle emergency vehicle access and so on. So regarding the Kowloon East sea-land connection, that's my the answer. Regarding the typhoon shelter, pedestrian footbridge for which also accommodate cyclists, we are already we will start this year the study and the surveying work. We hope that we'll be able to complete the project in 2028 Q4. For this pedestrian and cyclist bridge spanning across the typhoon shelter, there will also be a travelator. I'd like to know whether the facility will also allow vehicular traffic. I understand what the member is asking. In our design and the survey, we will also need to look at some of what arrangements, what functional arrangements we need to provide for. As to what kind modes of transport can use that bridge, it will depend on the current transport arrangement, especially we already have, because we have a multi-purpose, environmentally friendly transportation linkage system already. So in the design going forward, we will consider whether we need to provide vehicular access as well.
Next, Mr. Chen Hop-Fung.
Chairman, several questions, if I may. In the paper, there is the project 703-3101GX, the Futong temporary market. I've actually gone to the site myself, and it's not a very desirable venue. I understand that people in the area would like to have a temporary market, but they don't want the market to be provisioned there. It's a very remote location. So I'd like to ask the department, when you proposed this project, how did you decide on this location? And did you carry out any public consultation? From what I've heard, basically you did not have any public consultation before you decided to pick that site. I'm worried that when the money is spent, but in the end, very few people will end up using the facility, and it will become a very wasteful project. It's a very remote area. There is also not much human traffic, so I'd like the government to explain. Secondly, 705-5101 CX, the redevelopment of the Cheung Ferry Pier. The Cheung Ferry Pier is already fully saturated already. I understand that after you say that after the new pier is built, you will demolish the old one. I've consulted the local residents. They would all say that they would like to keep the old pier. If you've been there, you'll find that the road outside the Cheung Pier, there are many bicycles parked there obstructing traffic. I've been there myself. I've seen pedestrians fighting for the right of way with ambulances. If we keep the old pier, the lower level could be used to park the bicycles, so that would be able to resolve the problem of the shortage of parking space for bicycles. Also, the upper level could be used for commercial purposes to cross-subsidize the ferry business. And finally, the Mui War public housing project, and that is 711C100XX, that the Mui War Pier, public housing development project. So what is the progress of that project? What is the update on your study regarding this project? Yes. Who would like to answer the question? Chairman, I represent the AST. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to first of all respond to the question regarding the temporary market in Futong. This is under the purview of the FHG. Together with the FHG, I understand that in Tung Chung they would like to provide market facilities, but it is difficult to find suitable sites in the area, and eventually they, after considering various factors, the only location they could find were not that many, and in the end they chose this particular location. And thanks to Highways Department and other government departments, they have changed some of the vehicular passageways so that space could be provided to set up this market. Works have begun already, and in the third quarter of this year, the project will be completed. As for public consultation, according to my information, in 2021, before the project started at the Islands District Council, this project was approved. Thank you.
About the pier. Yes, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, member, for your question. Yes, Mr. Wong, please. I'm from the THB. Like what the paper said, for the Mui War Pier Road, well, this is a new project. We will conduct a feasibility study. Once we have the outcome, we will follow up accordingly. Thank you. So what kind of structure will be put in there? Sorry, I can't hear you. How many units will be provided? We will have to wait for the outcome of the study before we know how many units will be built. Our members can liaise with the relevant departments after the meeting. Next one, Mr. Scott Lang, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. I have several questions. First, it's about parks in different space districts. Shamshibo Park, Mr. Vincent Chang also asked about that, converting open space into parks. While following up on his question, well, it is slated for completion by Q3 this year, so can that really be done? And then for the Maple Street, the playground, the open space will be converted. The cost is under $5 million. And we know that for the open space in the Maple Street Park is quite small and it's near to a public toilet. And there is a sitting out area in the vicinity. So can you make an overall design incorporating all these other spaces and make the best use of the space? Well, a lot of elderly are playing chess there. Can you redesign the whole area? And then the third question about 6101EX. There are a number of projects involving the UAP program, and there will be new facilities, footpaths, and flyovers. And for SSB 01, SSB 02, in Tai Hong Tung and Lam San estates, there are 2 footbridges which are frequented. There will be lifts to be installed. What is the progress? And for the Bishop Hill former service reservoir, and that is previously there have been tours to collect members' views on conservation. Now, because of the epidemic, the tours have been suspended. And then residents have been suggesting that conservation can be combined together with provision of recreational facilities. So does the Water WSD and other departments have any updates for us? Well, you talk about parks, elevators, and Bishop Hill, and so on. So I think you have to be brief in your answers. So which department has raised their hands? I can't see clearly from here. Highways Department. Okay. We find that, well, there have been sporadic cases of workers working under the UAP program, and it, to a certain extent, affects the progress of work, as what the Permanent Secretary of Development Bureau said. We are abiding by the guidelines of the CHB, Center for Health Protection. We try to minimize the impact of the epidemic. And we'd like to minimize the impact on work progress. We are working very hard together with the contractors on that front. We hope that we can tide over the grave challenge posed by the epidemic, and we can keep to our schedule. And the completion date will remain the same. And then the member asked about several full bridges, SSP 01, SSP 02. According to information on hand, right now in Shamshipo, well, these footbridges are in Shamshipo. Basically, the construction work started in October 2019. And the works are ongoing. And we expect they will be completed in 2022 and 23. That remains our target. we're very working hard towards that target. Thank you, Chairman. You've run over time, but is there any department who can respond to the question about parks? Several members are very concerned about parks. HAB? Anyone from HAB to respond, please? I will briefly respond. I'm from the RSD. Maple Street project, the design is going on. And Mr. Leung would like to know about the progress of works on Championship Park. I think I have to supplement the information after the meeting. CWRF covers a large number of projects. So for any specific projects you are interested in, you can follow up after the meeting. Next one, Dr. Tik Chi Yun. Thank you, Chairman. I would like to follow up on subhead 8001 SX under subhead 708. There have been a lot of social welfare facilities proposed here. And I noticed the RCHD and RCHE projects. There are ongoing projects for building RCHD, and there is one new project on hostel for the severely mentally handicapped, and there is no RCHE proposed on the list. Members very concerned about the hostels for the disadvantaged places are falling short all the time, and there is a long queue and long waiting time. I hope the government can build more such hostels, and I don't see that the government is taking a proactive approach on that front. Is it the case that the building of the RCHE and RCHDs are subsumed under other project list and not on this list? So can the government confirm whether these the construction of these hostels are put on other projects or lists? I hope that we can meet with the needs of the society, but it seems that the construction of such hostels can fail to meet the needs of the society. So can the RSD and SWD tell us the number of such hostels to be built and completed this year? So social welfare facilities. Representative from the SWD, please. Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me? Yes. Assistant Director, Ms. Zhu, you can speak. For RCHEs, while they're not under this subhead, the construction cost is not on this list. While the head is subvention, but for the subvented organizations, they are also providing self-financed organizations. Their funding will come from the lotteries fund, so these are not reflected in this subhead. And then for members' question about other homes or hostels and our plans, I do have information here. For the elderly, this is outside of this subhead. Well, let me check the RCHEs, the number. In total, well, in the next few years, in terms of RCHEs, there will be a total of 15. And then there are 12 RCHEs as well as incorporating day care centers. So much for the elderly. And for on the rehabilitation side, on RCHDs, I do have the number of places. Around 2,500 places will be provided. I will not take up too much time. Maybe I'll write to the SWD. I would like to have the details, how many projects and so on. I'll liaise with the SWD separately. Because for some of the projects, they may be more large scale and they're not subsumed under the CWRF. Maybe you can follow up after the meeting. Thank you. Now, I said that for the first round, we'll end with Ms. Lam So White. I have asked many times, but no member has raised their hands. But then Mr. Ben Chen and Mr. Holden Chow have raised their hands to speak for the first time. Well, let me be flexible here. I will allow for these other two members to speak. And then for the second round, there will be Mr. Tony Che and Mr. Bill Tang. So I'll draw a line. So Mr. Lee Chen Kong, Lam So Wai, Chan Ham Pang, Holden Chow will speak for the first round. And then Mr. Tony Che and Mr. Bill Tang will ask a second round. And then we will put the application to the vote. Because I have to be very strict to the timing. Mr. Michael Lee. Thank you. 4 minutes. I noticed something about the UAP. Subhead 6101TR under head 706. Well, a lot of projects are concentrated in Yuen Long, Sha Tin, North District, and Chin Wan, especially Yuen Long. So can I ask the administration, does it mean that other districts don't need that UAP facilities? Well, the UAP is very popular. It helps a lot of people. So that's point number one. Number two is about, on page 11, there have been new sites proposed. And in terms of allocation, especially the Imatao Kok Street, Battery Street, for the Hong Kong Housing Society, the project estimate is around $900 million. But this time, you are just asking for an estimate of $150,000. How come that there is a big difference? What is the reason? And then, and I know that there is a list of the ongoing projects and the progress has been listed. I would like to know about the progress of this project. So does it mean that you will come back for funding year after year? And what has the work been done so far? Do you have any indicators to share with us? Several questions. UAP, which department will take the questions? Is it the Highways Department? Thank you, Chairman. About UAP, on page 41, while 10 new projects have been listed, while these are the 10 projects costing the highest amount, but then actually UAB program is implemented in every district in Hong Kong and not just Yuen Long or the North District. We've been taking forward all these projects, and recently we have consulted the district councils of the different districts. So our projects are not confined to certain districts. When there is a footbridge in a certain area, we will go and consult the relevant district council and welcome district residents to give input for us to consider. And then we will recommend the relevant universal accessibility facilities. Thank you, Chairman. Which department will further respond? Well, the member referred to Pak Tai Street project and so on. So which department will respond to that? Chairman, I'm from the Lands Department. All right, thank you. The member asked about the Pak Tai Street project under 701. This is about an allocation for compensation for land acquisition. This is not about the project of the Pak Tai Street per se. Well, the relevant project has been completed already, and it's just that we still have to dish out certain compensation for land acquisition. Some landlords have not been given the compensation, so we have to make make provisions for compensation, which will be dished out in 2022-23.
If members would like to know more about the specific details and progress of these projects, perhaps members may follow up on them after the meeting, and perhaps the official can also give us an overall, brief overall explanation. Mr. Lam? Mr. Lee Man-ching. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the question. Regarding the progress of the various projects, our mechanism is that every year we would apply to we submit to the PWSC quarterly reports. In these quarterly reports, we will list out the various expenses under the various different subheads, and every 6 months we would, in response to the request from the FC, list out the more expensive projects costing $40–50 million and provide details. In the middle of the year, we will submit a half-yearly report to give an account to members about the funding applied for at the beginning of the year, a list of the projects, and also at the end of the year, what is the latest status of those projects, and whether there are any projects which, at the time of application, we said we will proceed, and the reasons why they were not carried out, or while funding was approved, the project was not carried out. Like the chairman pointed out, if members have questions, would like to know about the progress of specific projects, they are welcome to get in touch with us, or the relevant departments will be more than happy to help. Madam Lam So Wai. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to follow up on the estimate for the 2 trunk roads, the Tate's Canal and the Jungle Tunnel, toll waiver project. So for T6, I hope the government will give us the timetable. The project was already the EIA was carried out in 2005. It's been more than 10 years since. I hope the Bureau will also provide a timetable for the construction of P4 so that there would not be any traffic congestion caused because of the traffic diversion. Because right now we have serious congestion at the Jungle Tunnel. Regarding the waiving of the toll for the Jungle Tunnel, people in the district are saying that for the bus interchange facility there, it could be expanded to provide for interchange facility for the PLP. For Anderson Hill and Jungle to tie in with the expected population increase in those 2 areas. And finally, in the funding application for Area 137, you're still conducting a study. People in Jungle strongly object to the relocation of the cement factory there. I hope the Development Bureau will into the option of moving the cement factory into caverns. Perhaps the TXP or the Highways Department can answer the question regarding Ms. Lam's 2 questions regarding our road projects. The first one is the expansion of T6. In the block allocation, we have included the estimates for the preliminary design, consultancy fee, and the design fee, and the surveying fees. We are already proceeding with the selection of the consultants. We hope that in the next few months we can start the consultancy study. As for the timetable for the start and completion of the project itself, I believe that once the study is completed, we will be able to come up with a clear timetable. Meanwhile, we don't have a specific timetable yet for this project. After the consultants have come up with some preliminary findings, we hope we'll be able to give an answer to members. The second question is about the Cheung Kwan O tunnel and the proposal to waive the tunnel fees. We are now, conducting some preparatory work, including the application to various departments regarding this project and the need for road diversion. The waiving of the toll fee for the Cheung Kwan O tunnel would involve the Cheung Kwan O Lam Tin tunnel, and it would need to tie in with the commissioning of that new tunnel. So for the commission date for that new tunnel, we're still talking to the relevant departments. If we're going to proceed with, if we want to switch to a toll-free arrangement, it doesn't take long, but the preparatory work has to tie in with the commissioning of the Cheung Kwan O Lam Tin tunnel. We're still working on this with the other departments concerned. Mr. Lau Chun Kit, PS of the Development Bureau. Thank you. Regarding the cement factory, Mr. Lam, to answer Mr. Lam's question, earlier on in Let's Go, we've already responded to a similar question. At the moment, we will, for the time being, move the cement factory in Cheung Kwan O 137. It will be there for a few years, and meanwhile, we will conduct a study because we've heard from members and the local residents. So the study will look at Kowloon East in the long run as to where we should relocate the cement factory. So in the next few years, we'll be able to conduct the study. Mr. Lam So Wai, if you have other concerns, you may follow up on those after the meeting. Mr. Chen Hang Ban, 4 minutes. Mr. Chen Hang Ban, you may speak now. Thank you, Chairman. I have questions relating to several questions. Head 703, subhead 3100GX, regarding the Texaco Road, the integrated complex. So there will be surveying and minor surveying work which cost 7 million. For the joint use complex, where will it be located? I can't find it in the map. And head 703 subhead 3101GS, the Chin Wan, open space or park, and there is a pet garden there. And there's been a lot of controversies relating to that park. So for this forthcoming project, I hope that you would also incorporate under this project the enhancement of the pet garden. Would you be able to do that? Mr. Chen Hao-fong also asked earlier about the Cheung Chau Pier. The Rural Committee in Cheung Chau had said many times that they would like to keep the old pier so that it could be used to park bicycles, while also to be used for community services. So when you build a new pier, you should consider also the retention of the old pier. Texaco Road Integrated Complex, the Joint User Complex, ASD. Chairman, CDD and ASD. We'll begin with ASD first. Chairman, I represent the ASD. Let me answer the question regarding the joint use complex in Texaco Road. For the other project, I will supplement later. Regarding the joint use complex in Texaco Road, it is in Wing Sun Street and Texaco Road. It's at the junction of those two roads. It's a site at the corner there. For the Chin Wan Park, if I can look up the information, I will supplement further later. CEDD. Can you hear me? Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Lee Wai Pan, thank you. Thank you for the question. Some members earlier have also asked questions regarding the Cheung Chau Pier. I didn't have an opportunity to answer the question, so if I may make a supplement now. The Cheung Chau Pier, the reconstruction of Cheung Chau Pier. In the new pier, we will provide 4 berths, and we will provide a larger waiting area and, barrier-free facilities there. The study and the surveying work, in the course of which we will conduct EIA and TIA assessments. In the new pier, we will provide parking spaces for bicycles, and that will greatly relieve the congestion along the road fronting the pier. We can also make use of the space in the new pier to provide more common space. So we need to globally take a look at the possibility of retaining the old pier. In our surveying and design stage, we will further look at whether the old pier could be retained or put to other uses. Thank you. Mr. Lee, I hope you will also, liaise with the Rural Committee in Cheung Chau on this issue. Thank you. Regarding the Chin Wan Park or open space, if the director don't have information offhand, or I see the AST would like to supplement. Thank you, Chairman. Regarding the Chin Wan Park, the size is not very large. There are some children's play facilities there. I think we all understand that people in the local area would like us to provide more children recreational facilities. So basically, the park will be providing children's play facilities. Mr. Chen asked whether we also provide for a pet garden there. The SSD decision is that it will mainly be focused on children's play facilities. Director, the Chin Wan Park, we know that it will be used for recreation facilities, but we've waited for a long time for the redevelopment. For pets, there are facilities for pets there. They just want, some relocation, and the space vacated could be turned into play area. So I hope you will proceed the project as soon as possible, so that it will not get in the way of the dry weather, flow interception work. Holden Chow. Am I coming through, Chairman? Thank you. I have 2 questions. First of all, 703 number 6, Tin Mun Area 16, the surveying work for the playground, sports ground there. We understand that in Area 16 Tin Mun, that sports ground, I think if I remember correctly, originally it was supposed to be completed in 2022, but apparently the work has yet to start. So I'd like to take the opportunity to follow up on this. Since we already have the surveying work included in the project, I'd like to ask what is the update. I've asked the same question on other occasions. I have not been able to get a satisfactory answer. 7031, Tin Mun Bypass and the related studies. I think this, again, is an old issue. We understand that the Tin Mun Bypass will only be completed in 2034, 2036. So I like to ask about whether there is any basis to shorten the advanced excavation and survey and work and the studies.
Well, it's a long-awaited project. These are my two questions. Thank you, Chairman. I hear that the Highways Department has raised their hands, followed by the Director of Architectural Services. Highways Department. About Tuen Mun Bypass. Well, if you read the paper, you know that last year, in the block allocations, that was not included. Tuen Mun residents and Tuen Mun District Council have asked for us to expedite the works. We have heard your views, and we have immediately started the investigation and consultancy study. The consultant's work is nearing completion, and in the next few weeks, hopefully, the consultant's contract can be awarded, and we can proceed with the engineering and site investigation works as soon as possible. Director of our ASD, please. About the sports ground in Area 16 Tuen Mun, it is a sizable area. There will be a football pitch, and then there will be a 5,000-seat spectator stand, and there will be a very sizable public car park with some 500 car parking spaces. The consultant study started in Q3 of 2021. It takes time to come up with a design because this is a project encompassing a lot of facilities. Hopefully, in 2023, we can seek funding support from the LegCo. The detailed construction timetable will then be also given then. Thank you very much. Now we will have the second round. Mr. Tong Ni Chair, 3 minutes. So you must finish in 3 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. I fully understand that timing matters a lot for the CWRIF block allocations. So I agree that these items were not discussed at the development panel, and they were forwarded directly to the PWSC for our scrutiny. And I'd like to thank the chairman for trying to control the time. In the interest of time, Chairman, I will write to the relevant departments for questions which went unanswered. I will write to the chairman, and I hope that government officers can respond before we vote on these items at the FC. And then I have a specific question. I noticed that for more than one item, well, their amount is just several $1,000s, falling short of $550 million. For example, for the Yongfeng Shu Memorial School improvement works in Kwun Tong, and also the integrated waste management facility phase 2, the amount is $49 million. Now, if the estimate is not correct and the budget is overrun by tens of thousands of dollars, do we need to go back to the Finance Committee to seek approval again, causing a delay? Well, I would like to know whether the government estimates are accurate, because you have already taken our tender. So, Mr. Lee, can you respond to the question? For projects nearing the margin, what will happen to them? Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Chair, for your question. For the estimates of the projects, it is the controlling officers who are coming up with the amount based on their professional studies and judgment. So they come up with the most appropriate estimates. Under the Development Bureau, there is a cost control office. They will also be looking at minor works costing $30 to $50 million. They will look at whether the project estimates are right or not. Well, my question is rather simple. Say if the project exceeds $50 million, do we have to go to seek funding for such projects at the FC? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, the FC has delegated authority to the FSTB if there is an overrun of $15 million in a certain subhead item, then that can still proceed without the FC's extra approval. The projects should not exceed $50 million as a whole. And if projects do run over $50 million, these have to, funding approval has to be sought from the FC. But if the total amount does not exceed $50 million, even if the project estimate is exceeded by $50 million, no extra approval is needed. Last one, Mr. Bill Tang. Thank you, Chairman. I'm very concerned about sorry, you're not coming through smoothly. Mr. Tang, Bill Tang. Sorry. In the East Kowloon's business area and Kai Tak development. Yes, can you hear me? Sorry, we can't hear you clearly. Well, let me give a last try. I would like to ask this. For the several projects connected Kai Tak to Kwun Tong Business District. Sorry, you have been cut off. Mr. Bill Tang, maybe there's something wrong with the line at your end. I can't hear your question, but it seems that you are asking about the traffic situation in Kwun Tong. Well, this was raised by another member already. If you think that we have not discussed what you would like to talk about, maybe you can liaise with the relevant department and write to them after the meeting. Sorry. So we are done with this discussion. Let me raise this point. Some members said that they are concerned about the Bishop Hill and then project and maybe after the meeting, the relevant departments can respond in writing, and that is about the situation in the Bishop Hill project. Members, of course, can follow up duly at the relevant panel. Now, I'll put this to the vote. I'd like to remind non-PWSC members not to vote, and please keep your face and hands clearly in front of the camera. For those who are in favor of PWSC 2021-22-35, please raise a hand. Those who are for, please raise a hand. Let me look at the gallery view here. I'd like to remind members, please, if you are in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Those who are against, please raise your hand. Those who are against, please raise your hand. Wow, nobody is objecting. Those who are abstaining, please raise your hand. I don't see anyone abstaining. So I think the majority of members present are in support of the proposal. The proposal is endorsed. Next, there is another item to be discussed. This is really like going through the motion here. And if members are in majority supporting the proposal, do you recommend that the FC further discuss this item? Is there further discussion needed at the FC? So if you raise your hand to support, that means that you are in favor of this being discussed again at the FC. If you object to it, then it means that no discussion is further needed at the FC. All we need to do is submit it to the FC, and then the FC can put a vote to it right away. Those who are in favor, that is, those who think that further discussion is needed at the FC, please raise your hand. If you think the further discussion is needed at the FC, please raise your hand. Nobody is in favor. Those who are against, please raise your hand. Which means that there is no further discussion needed at the FC. Please raise your hand. Those who are against, please raise your hand. Please raise your hand. No need for further discussion at the FC. Okay, please put down your hand. Those who are abstaining? Anyone? No? I think the majority of members are objecting to this proposal. So we say we think that the FC, there is no need for the FC to discuss this paper. Now we come to item 2, and that is the public transport interchange at Tak Tin Street and associated road improvement works in Lam Tin paper, PWSC 2021-22/36. To ensure that the arrangement for members to speak is orderly and fair, will staff please remove the hands up sign of members? Yes, removed. Those who would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. These members are invited to recommend to the Finance Committee the upgrading of 84 T1 to Cat 8 at an estimated cost of 104.4 million in money of the day prices. The government has consulted the Housing Council on the 7th of February, and members supported the proposal be submitted to the PWSC for consideration. The gist of the Transport Panel's discussion has been disseminated to members for your reference via the email. The list of government officers attending for this item has been tabled. I will not introduce them one by one. Which member would like to ask a question? 3 members would like to speak. Well, I'll be flexible with the timing. We may go over 10:30 a bit, but not too much. 3 members would like to speak. I'll be strict on the timing. 4 minutes. Mr. Bill Tang, Mr. Tony Che, and Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. No other member has indicated the wish to speak. Well, this is a rather straightforward item, and I believe that you will give your support. Mr. Tang, Bill Tang, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. In building PRH and subsidized housing, I think they have the support of the community as a whole. So the Kwun Tong District Council is fully in support of the project. So the opinions or the comments I raise will be rather straightforward. I note that for this single block, PRH block, there will be certain facilities, but there will not be any football. That might have to do with the facilities near the service reservoir. I have consulted the Kwun Tong District Council members. They said that the demand is really small. So when can the government, well, think of putting in a multi-purpose space there? Say, for example, people can play badminton there. And I hope that there will be the joint single site multiple use principle be adopted. And the Kwun Tong district councillors have asked for childcare services, daycare centers for the elderly, so that the needs of the community can be adequately met.
I hope there will be a response to my proposal. And also after the project is approved by Let's Go, I hope you will still go to the Kwun Tong District Council and ask them what other facilities they would like to be provided in the facility here as well. Perhaps the Housing Department can answer the question. THB and Housing Department. Let's begin with the Housing Department. To answer Mr. Tang's question, in 2020, we consulted the District Council regarding the development in Taksin Tin Street. I think near the Taksin project. Now, in Ping Tin, there was a proposal to build a gateball pitch, and our thinking at the time was that when Tuck Tin project completed together with the gateball pitch, when the gateball pitch is completed, then the Ping Yin gateball pitch can be developed. We understand that there is a very keen demand for public housing, and at this site, at the venue, the usage rate is only 37%, and in the midst of the epidemic, is less than 20%. So we find it very difficult to find an alternative site nearby. So by the time the foundation work is completed for the Taksin project, we'll further review this option so that we can expedite the development of Ping Tin. Regarding the Tek Tin public housing project, we have a provision for a nursery center with 100 places. There will also be an elderly neighborhood center there. We will work closely. We'll work closely with the SWD regarding the needs of the local residents. THB. A brief answer, if you may. The clerk told me that we must finish at 10:30. The technicians will need to actually prepare for the Zoom meeting of the full council. THB. You may speak now. Can you hear me? Yeah. Transport and housing. I'll repeat if the Housing Department has already spoken, right? Is it the turn of the THB now? No? Okay then, nothing further. Next then, we must finish at 10:30, so I'm afraid we can only allow 3 minutes for Mr. Tony Chair and Mr. Chen Xiu-Hong. Tony Chair? Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I think at the panel, I've also asked a question regarding this project. First of all, for the PTI, the public transport interchange, we're going to spend $70 million on this project. I'd like to ask whether the government has considered providing new facilities which will be convenient to the public, rather than the old PTI, which remained the same and looked the same over the years without any enhancement. I'd like to know whether you could have some enhancements to benefit the users by using or leveraging on the development of new technologies. I also noticed that from the start of the project to completion is going to be 5 years. So during these 5 years, if there is an increase in the transportation or demand, will you have the flexibility to cope with the increase in demand? Because the work will be completed in 2027. There will be 5 years. THP? To answer Mr. Chair's question, regarding the facilities, we will provide, office for the bus captains, and we also will be providing charging facilities, and we'll be also using smart lighting. Now, the site originally was an open-air parking space. We've used half the space to build a housing block. There's a lot of challenges here. We've tried our best to maintain the same number of bus routes in this PTI. So in Pingtin Street, we also have some bus space there. So we already therefore have reserved some flexibility. Chairman, those facilities are for the convenience of the users or patrons. Mr. Look had also made the same point. For these public transport interchange which accommodate many bus routes, people sometimes don't know, with the time at which a particular bus will depart. So from the design perspective, I think you need to change with the times. So the housing department and those responsible for the design will consider my proposal. If not, there are many people from our sector who can give you excellent ideas. So don't just stick to the old rules, because the PDI for decades have not really been improved at all. Ms. Mack and Mr. Look are both nodding their heads, so the point is taken. Mr. Chen Siu Hong. Thank you. I have 3 questions. First of all, I agree with Mr. Tony Chair that for this project, we need to leverage on innovative technologies and make use of smart facilities. And I have 2 other specific questions. First of all, in Annex 1, I know that near the site is next to 2 schools. In paragraph 1516, you say that mitigating measures will be carried out during the works period. I'm worried that the work period will be for 5 years. I'd like to know whether you have any measures to lower the noise level in order not to disturb the schools. Next, regarding the public housing project in Tek Tin Street, I understand that of 400 something, the block will accommodate about 500 people. So many, singleton elderly people will move into the block. Apparently, there are no elderly-friendly facilities for this housing block. So if you're going to build a PTI, I think you should bear in mind that whether you will provide for elderly-friendly facilities in this PTI. So in the design stage, I hope you will take that into consideration. THP? Mr. Chen, we will certainly be making use of more innovative technologies. As for the schools, we've actually visited those 2 schools in the vicinity. I've asked them about their needs. I understand that regarding the environment and the noise issue, we'll certainly, implement measures to mitigate the noise nuisance and require the contractors to use quiet machinery and adopt all the necessary mitigating measures. As for the public housing block, for the singleton unit, they may not necessarily be allocated to the elderly. We will talk to the SWD about the provision of elderly-friendly facilities. In Pingtin, we have an elderly, friendly elderly center. And in this housing block, we will provide for, a nursery center. Thank you. So we will now vote on this project. I'd like to remind those who are not members of the PWSC to abstain from voting. When you cast a vote, please let us see your face clearly on the screen. All those who are in favor of the proposal in PWSC 36, please put up your hands. Please raise your hands if you are in favor. Some members have yet to raise their hands, so allow them some time. All those in favor, please put up your hands. Okay? You may now lower your hand. Those against the proposal, please raise your hand. Raise your hand rather than pressing the hands up, button. Those against, please raise your hand. I don't see any objection. Abstention? Any abstention? Again, there is no abstention. So the proposal is supported by the majority of members, so it is approved. Next, we need to decide whether or not this project will need to be further deliberated at the FC meeting, namely paper PWSC 36. If you put up your hand, it would mean that the proposal will need to be further deliberated at the FC meeting. Those in favor of, a further deliberation at the FC meeting, please put up your hand. I don't see any hands. Those against, meaning that at the FC meeting, we don't need to deliberate on this proposal any further. Thank you. You may lower your hand now. Abstention. Do we have any abstention? I don't see any abstention, so all members agree that we don't need any further deliberation on this project at the FC meeting. So we've finished our deliberation on this project. The next meeting for the PWSC will be on the 6th of April, a Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. until 10:30. We will be deliberating on the 2019 COVID-19, the latest update on the COVID-19. Because of the epidemic, the clerk will inform members we will be meeting in person or through video conference connections. So thank you very much for your cooperation. We were able to finish on time. Thank you very much. We are now adjourned. Thank you.